Joan Nikon had asked to make an announcement ahead of this, but I don't see him. But I can just mention he wanted to call everyone's attention to the speaker who's coming in later this afternoon at 4 o'clock, a very distinguished expert on jazz. Roger probably doesn't need an introduction to most of us who've been here a while. And the subject is something that we all seem to be a little bit obsessive about lately. I wonder why. So I am not going to spend any more time introducing it, but I will just let Roger take over.
Before I begin, I want to point out a couple of people that are extremely important to this kind of thing happening. The first is Karen. I really appreciate the fact that she has taken up the mantle, and I consider Saturday Matters, when I'm not speaking, to be one of the most important things that we do. To start out, let's talk about what the subject is, which is dictatorship. And as you can see, you can read the dictionary definition. None of this is surprising to you at all. But for my talk, it's very important to me to deal with people that became dictators or want to be a dictator that you would not have expected. For example, I'm not interested in somebody that becomes an absolute ruler because they are a hereditary monarch. A couple of examples would be Louis XIV, who became an absolute ruler, but he only became an absolute ruler of France because his dad was Louis XIII. That doesn't interest me. It's like he had it made when he was born. A second example from our current time, Kim Jong-un doesn't interest me either because I don't think he'd be where he is if he wasn't the son of Kim Jong-il. So I'm interested in people that became dictators and you wouldn't expect it. So like I said, in fact, what I'm going to talk about is 4 actual dictators and 1 wannabe dictator. And especially the last 3 came from very humble beginnings. You would never expect that they would be leading a major country. All of them came up at a time of extraordinary turmoil. When everything's calm, tranquil, peaceful, everything's going fine, you're not looking for a strong man. They're also very charismatic. They, have the capability of electrifying a crowd when they talk, and they're able to dial in what the common people are concerned about, and then they say, I'm going to fix it, whether they can or not. And then that's what the common people want to hear, is that somebody's going to fix this situation. And, obviously they're obsessed with gaining. Obviously they're obsessed with gaining absolute power.
Sorry.
All right. Okay. For those of you that were hoping that at least I'm not going to be talking about another damn ancient Roman, sorry. Okay, so let's talk about my first example of a dictator.
Jeez.
Anyway, he came up at a time of extraordinary turmoil. You can read my points, and this is the short story. Julius Caesar was a member of the Julii family, which was one of the original patrician families of Rome. He could not have a more blue blood aristocratic pedigree. In fact, his family would trace their family tree back to the goddess Venus. And I think that he actually believed that. But despite the fact that he was an aristocrat, when he was born, Italy was involved in a incredibly brutal civil war. And this is going to sound familiar. The Civil War was involved. You had the ultra-conservative Senate of Rome, and the people of the rest of Italy who were being taxed by the Romans and were actually serving in the Roman legions. They wanted to be Roman citizens, and the Civil War was fought for that reason. The Julii, the family that Julius Caesar belonged to, were part of what would be considered the populace, not the conservatives. In fact, his uncle was a guy named Gaius Marius, who was the leading general of the forces that were going against the conservatives. And the problem was that his side lost. Nobody could ever take away his pedigree, but they took away all their money. And so he was in a position where he was extremely power hungry. And one other thing I just wanted to point out. During the Civil War, there was a clause in the Roman Constitution that allowed for a dictator at times of extreme turmoil. It was elected, but the dictator would be elected by the Senate, but there was a term limit, and it was usually 6 months, and then it would have to be re-upped. So you have Julius Caesar, and let's make him a teenager. His family has no money, but he's extremely power hungry. He can't join the Senate because they have no money. The family doesn't. So he takes another course, which is the Roman military, and briefly, he becomes probably the most successful Roman general of all time. I was actually going to do an extremely boring Saturday Matters on the military exploits of Julius Caesar before this subject came up. And I may still bore you with it in the future. But anyway, as we know, or we don't know, it was illegal to bring your legions. He had a very successful campaign in Gaul, which is modern day France. It was illegal to bring your legions into Italy proper, and the border on the eastern side of Italy was the Rubicon River. He brought his legions in and crossed the Rubicon, which you probably heard that expression, and the conservatives in the Senate were scared to death, went to Greece. Caesar chased after him, was victorious, but interestingly enough, despite being, not despite, but as a victorious general, he was very magnanimous, and he pardoned a lot of people. Two of the people that had fought against him that he pardoned were Brutus and Cassius. For those Shakespearean scholars in the audience, you know what happened. So the conservatives, thought that he wanted to be king of Rome, which was, they couldn't, nobody wanted that. But where the conservatives got it wrong was they thought that the common people hated Caesar because he wanted to be a king, and they were dead wrong. And the way they handled it was to assassinate him. Just kind of, so that was his route to becoming a dictator. I just thought this was kind of interesting, that the name Kaiser Czar, and I don't know how to pronounce that, Kaiser. But anyway, all of these words come from Julius Caesar. Okay, this is our second dictator, also one of my favorite historical figures. The picture that you're looking at is, you can see it in the Louvre. It's by David. It was painted very close to the time that this event actually happened. And it's in a room of the Louvre that, I don't want to get too technical here, but I call it the room with a lot of really big pictures. When you see 33 by 20 up there, you think that's inches? That's feet. Okay, I just want to point out a few figures here. The first one is this guy right here sitting down, and also this takes place in Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And but this guy is Pope Pius VII, and he thought that he was going to be overseeing this event. One of the other things that you find out about dictators is they just aren't that religious. And I think the reason is that means that you think there's a higher power, and they don't believe in that. But anyway, so poor Pope Pius VII is just kind of sitting there. This is Napoleon Bonaparte. Interestingly enough, he's, and this is his coronation as Emperor of France. And so he doesn't dress up like a king. He dresses up like an actual Roman emperor. I think that Julius Caesar, if he was sitting in the audience, he'd say, "Wow, way to go." But what Napoleon's doing is he's crowning his wife, Josephine. So this is different than Julius Caesar. Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't even French. He was born on Corsica, which is an island off the French Riviera, and from relatively middle-class background. Nobody would ever think that he would become Emperor of France. It just made no sense. However, something happened in 1789, which was the storming of the Bastille, which is 15 years before this event happens. And Napoleon becomes a general in the French army, and age 24. Brilliant military tactician. And then I said that in order to become a dictator, you need to have complete political turmoil. The Reign of Terror, which was roughly 1794, was about as terrorist as you can get. This is when Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were guillotined in Paris. It's hard for us to imagine what it would have been like, you have the French revolutionaries surrounded by all of these European monarchs, which think the last thing they want to have happen is what just happened in France. And so the French Revolution was under military attack almost like from the beginning. But then, because it's so bad, and the Reign of Terror is so bad, there was a committee in Paris that was essentially running the country called the Directory, and Napoleon, he instigates a coup. The members of the Directory resign, and Napoleon Bonaparte becomes master of France. So this is another key element in becoming a dictator. You try to neutralize any other type of government legislative body. Now, I just mentioned this. I want to mention this here. We tend to think that a dictator is automatically bad. Not so much. So France, prior to the revolution, was a typical European feudal society. You had the king got his power from God, and then dispersed that power in order to keep his power. So he would have a whole bunch of aristocrats, lords, with land grants all over the country, and essentially the common people, the peasants, were just in poverty. But because this system came from the king who got his power from God, nobody did anything about it. Then Napoleon comes along, and briefly, he devises a legal code that was, you can read about it here. It was actually quite good. And he abolished all of this feudal hierarchy that had oppressed the people for, 1,000+ years. And parts of the Napoleonic Code are still written exactly the same in the French Constitution right now. Okay, we get to our third dictator. This is an interesting one because growing up in Seattle, I was taught, all the way through high school in world history, that the worst person that ever lived was Adolf Hitler. After I got to college and really started reading about other people, I'm not so sure. I'm not lessening in the slightest bit how bad he was. But this guy was, I think, about the same. And again, like Napoleon, he wasn't even a Russian. He was born in Georgia. But he took a different route. He didn't go through the military. He used the Bolshevik party apparatus to gain power. So, and he was part of so what happened in the Russian Revolution was that there was, the Tsar abdicates, there's a provisional government that's in the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, and they really wanted to create a democracy. However, like World War I was just in full force, and they wanted to continue. Like, at this point, probably the Russian military had, there's probably 3 million soldiers had been killed in World War I. But so the Bolsheviks storm the Winter Palace and overthrow the provisional government, and they become the power in Russia. So if you're going to have power in Russia in 1918, let's say, it's going to be through the Bolshevik Party. So what Stalin does is he works his way up through the ranks of the Bolsheviks, but he really wasn't what you might call a real political, great thinker. He was just and with my wannabe dictator, you're going to come across another person who's really not a really great political thinker. But anyway, there were members of the Bolshevik Party who were, devoted communists and really believed in the whole thing, including Leon Trotsky, but not Stalin. So Lenin, who we all know about, he was the head guy at the time. He dies, and the rumor is that he had written a testament saying that Stalin was an idiot, and Stalin did a very good job of suppressing that document, and hopefully I'm going to be able to go to the next slide. Good. Okay, and then I want to talk about this picture. This is, and I call it 1920s Photoshop. Photoshop is one of my favorite little, apps or programs and you can manipulate photographs. For example, one of the things that I did was I took my granddaughter and put her face into a girl with a pearl earring. And you can do that in Photoshop. Well, it turns out that Stalin had a small committee of people that did exactly the same thing, only they didn't have that kind of technology, but they did an extremely good job. This particular picture was Stalin had sent all over Russia to show that he and Lenin were really good buddies. If you notice, they're sitting in 2 different kinds of chairs. That's because there's a picture of Lenin, and then separately there's a picture of Stalin, and his committee put them together. And then the other thing was that their mouths didn't quite show them having a great time. So they fixed that too, so that you can, they just couldn't be better friends. And then, so Lenin is gone, Stalin and so his road to becoming a dictator, he starts a cult of personality. He names a city after himself. This didn't work out well for the people that lived in that city because Hitler said, if there's one place I want to obliterate, it's this city. And it almost happened. But this is really important. For those that have read any Karl Marx, the idea for communism was that they were going to obliterate national borders. It was going to become, the world was going to become ruled by the international workers. Workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. Stalin didn't like that idea because that means there's universal rule. He wanted one man rule. So he switches it around and comes up with the philosophy of socialism for one country. He wants to solidify his rule within Russia. And then he starts working within the party, and you can read, you know, what he's done, but he works within the party to eliminate his rivals because the party is the only thing, there's no opposition. So there's no legislative branch to get rid of, there's no judiciary. The army is the Red Army. So if you're the leader of the Bolshevik party, you're a dictator. You knew this was coming. I'm serious. I don't even like to look at pictures of this guy. But anyway, he's our next dictator, so we have to talk about how did Hitler, what was the road he took? How did Hitler become a dictator? This picture in the lower left, that's a Hitler Youth rally. For those that think this only happened in Germany, or it could only happen in Germany, here's a rally in Madison Square Garden. Tons of Nazi sympathizers in the United States that were isolationists, did not want us to get involved in World War II. In my opinion, it's just a segment of humanity that never goes away, and they're with us today. And this one I stumbled onto. I was planning on showing a picture of one of the Nazi rallies in Nuremberg. One of the things that I have seen is a movie called Triumph of the Will. And it was directed by a female German director, you know, in the 30s that was, you know, for a female movie director to even exist was really rare. And she was brilliant. And, you know, the editing, the lighting, the way that the frenzy was captured in this movie of a Nazi rally in Nuremberg was a wonderful thing if you just try not to think about the incredibly bad situation and event that it portrays. Then I stumbled onto this picture. I'm not going to try and pronounce this. The name of the you know, the place where this took place. But that's 700,000 people at a Nazi rally. Can you imagine if Donald Trump could get together a rally of 700,000 people? The other thing about this that bothers me is that after World War II, it was, you know, like all of the Nazis said I wasn't really a Nazi. You know, I was secretly, you know, supporting the resistance. As far as I'm concerned, these people are all true believers. Okay, you can just kind of read through this. I won't read it for you, but Hitler, like Napoleon, like Stalin, was actually not even German. He was Austrian. And he fought in World War I. He was a corporal, not especially distinguished. But he, while in World War I, he came up with, he couldn't understand how the German army could have possibly lost this war. And he felt that it was because they were stabbed in the back. They, first of all, we all kind of know about the Treaty of Versailles and the incredibly harsh conditions that were put on the German people after that. But then, you have the political leaders of the Weimar Republic, which were in, like in the 20s, were the political leaders of Germany, and then you have the Jews and the Marxists. Later on, he would want to eliminate more than these people, but at this time, he felt that because the Jews and the Marxists had a degree of power, that they were the reason that the German army had lost. So he organizes the Nazi Party, and in Munich they tried to stage a coup to overthrow the Weimar Republic, and it was unsuccessful. Hitler is sent to prison, and while he's in prison, he writes Mein Kampf, which I have read. I read it in college, and I have to say it was not only full of the most awful, ideas, but Hitler was a really crappy writer. But anyway, I got through it anyway, and the good news is, like in the United States, at that time, books like Mein Kampf were easily available. If you want to read Karl Marx, it's out there. There's no, get the ideas out there. Anyway, he works as, the Nazi Party becomes one of the political parties in the Reichstag, which is the German parliament, and but they're not a majority yet. So this is, the Reichstag, though Hitler was able to create coalitions, and the Enabling Act of 1933 essentially eliminates the power of the legislature. And I told you that was one of the things that's really important to becoming a dictator. And then, but that's not, eliminating their power wasn't enough, in my opinion, for Hitler. For some reason, as a coincidence, a month later, as you can see down in the lower right, there's the Reichstag building prior to this fire. And so that totally eliminates the idea of a legislature. And Hitler blames the communists for the fire. And so Hindenburg, who is still the president of Germany, he abolishes civil liberties, including freedom of speech, right to assemble, protest, all of the stuff that we hold sacred here. And God, just another, it happens over and over again, just to, ban un-German books. What's an un-German book? You have to ask the Nazis. They'll tell you. Then, in July of 1933, no more other political parties except the Nazis. This is like in Russia with the Bolsheviks. Okay, following on Hitler's road to dictatorship. One of the problems that Hitler had about this time, this is 1933, 1934, around in there. So he's eliminated the power of the legislature. But one group that were not impressed by Hitler was the German army. And the German high command were a very aristocratic, conservative group. And here's this little funny-looking corporal from Austria trying to take over the country. Hitler knew that if he did not have the support of the army, his goal was never going to be reached. So, this is a group of Jews being marched down the street, humiliated. This is a brown shirt, and the brown shirts were a paramilitary element of the Nazi Party. They were not part of the established German army. And Hitler knew that as long as the brown shirts were still around, that the German conservative high command would never take him seriously. So essentially, on the night of the long knives, he eliminates their leader and a lot of the actual brown shirts themselves. And then at this point, they have no power. So Hindenburg dies 1934, August, and then Hitler becomes Führer. And then this is an interesting one. Okay, this is a month later, in September of 1934, Hitler addresses the National Socialist Women's Organization, stating, "A woman's world is her husband, her family, her children, and her home." I know what you're all thinking. What's the problem with this? Anyway, I just thought I'd add a little bit of levity, trying to mix it up. Okay, then the Nuremberg race laws, Jews are denied civil rights, vote, government work, intermarriage with Christian Germans. And then in March of 1936, absolute violation of the Treaty of Versailles, the German army goes into the Rhineland. And just a second. This is a picture of the German army coming into the Rhineland. It's obviously, the Nazis would have loved this woman, maybe handing off a bouquet of flowers to the German soldier. But there's something going on in this picture that a lot of people don't really think too much about. When you think of the United States Army in World War II, and if somebody said, I want you to think of two images of the United States Army. The two that I can think of, first of all, the Normandy invasion. So you've got a whole row of warships that are pounding the Normandy beach. Then comes this, highly mechanized army storming the beach. The other image I have of the United States Army in World War II is General Patton in his tank directing things, and there's this, it seems like 1,000 tanks headed toward Germany. We're going to get them. In other words, not especially the best military equipment, but modern military equipment. Look at this guy. He's on a horse. The reason for that was that with the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was virtually, their army was cut down to such a size that most of their major armament was gone. At this time, they had not even hardly begun to restock the German army. This is a whole other story, but a lot of historians think that if Hitler would have waited a few more years to continue this restocking of the German army, that World War II would have turned out differently. So we're going along on the timeline. So October and November of 1936, the essential Axis alliance of World War II is created. Then if you were living in Nazi Germany and you had a son, it was required that he become a member of the Hitler Youth. So the idea that anybody's going to think differently just is not going to work. This is a picture of Hitler. He's addressing the crowd in Vienna. Then he marches into the Sudetenland in Western Czechoslovakia. We all remember that. Neville Chamberlain comes back with Peace in Our Time. The fact that Hitler was trying to be appeased, that's a whole other story. And then the Kristallnacht, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, this is November 1938, and the synagogues destroyed, Jewish shopkeepers, their shops were destroyed, and then the Nazis fined the Jewish population saying, oh, look at this, you're going to pay for it. Okay, so we've talked about four different dictators that and how they became dictators. Okay, so these are the common characteristics. Some are more a part of one dictator than the other, but this is kind of a common pattern. You have to have the political and social turmoil. You have to appeal to the common people. You have to abolish the legislature. You have to abolish the power of the judiciary. You have to suspend rights, assume command of the military, attack intellectuals, ban books. You want to expand your national territory, eliminate rivals, create a cult of personality, and demand loyalty above all else. So I want you all to kind of keep these things in the back of your mind, because we're going to talk about the next, he's not a dictator yet, he's a wannabe. I hesitated to put this picture, these two pictures up. You're wondering why I would hesitate. I was worried that you ladies out in the audience might get romantically aroused. I'm not sure that that's healthy this early in the morning. But you seem to be okay. So we'll continue on. And we're going to go through some things that on his road to dictatorship, what so far Trump has done a pretty good job of. First of all, I want to talk about this picture. As you can all guess, this is January 6th, the riot in the Capitol. Interestingly enough, see this guy right here? His t-shirt says Camp Auschwitz. I don't know what to say. And then you've got the other, rioters. They've torn the sign off of Nancy Pelosi's, the entrance to her offices. But, so what has Trump done so far? He has promoted the fear of minorities and immigrants, demand the loyal of other Republicans, invents a new verb to primary. That means, okay, you're like a congressperson from some district in Kentucky or whatever. Even if you're a Republican and you say, I don't think a lot of the stuff that you're doing is such a good idea, then Trump would say, well, you're going to get primaried, and he will come up with a true believer to run against you. And then this one all really kind of took me by surprise. Like on his first day with that giant stack of executive orders, it was like he attacked in so many different directions. It was so bewildering. You couldn't you couldn't focus on one to say, no, you shouldn't be doing that, because it was just spread all over the place. Then he puts in his, it's not just Doge and Leon, but he puts in cabinet secretaries that are loyal to him, and he says, we're going to use your federal agency to attack my enemies. And then, just a second. This is the scariest part of all to me. What he has done, and I'm going to talk about two different situations here. What he has done is make the actual cost in, not just in money, but the actual cost of opposing him so great that you have the motivation to just give up. That is like not only giving him a road to dictatorship, but paving it for him. So this is the first issue that actually in the last couple of days has become another big item. So 60 Minutes, the news Sunday evening news show, they do an interview during the election with Kamala Harris, and Trump thinks that they have edited the interview to make her look better than she actually does. So how much damage does Donald Trump think this might have done to him and his campaign? It's exactly $20 billion worth of damage. And then on the campaign trail, he continually says, I want that CBS, 60 Minutes Network, CBS should lose their license. Then CBS is owned by Paramount, and what do? They don't say, hey, no, we stand by our interview, we stand by what we're doing. If you think we owe you something, that we've wronged you, let's go to court. Nope. They say, well, how about if we give you $16 million, this is to Donald Trump himself, not to him as president. If we give you $16 million, can we make this all go away? So that's what they do. They come up with a settlement, but then CBS kind of sheepishly says, But this really isn't a payoff to Donald Trump. It's actually just to pay for his legal expenses of this trial and also for his future presidential library. Then, the next thing is that Paramount decides that they want to sell to, it's more properly a merger with another studio, Skydance. Kind of a normal business situation. But in order for two studios to merge, it has to be approved by the FCC. And and the chairman, Brendan Carr, who Trump just appointed, Brendan Carr is all, I didn't know this, but he's also the one on the, remember Project 2025, on the section on what should be done about the FCC, he wrote that. And, staunch conservative, Trump supporter. And then he says that he's going to look at this potential merger because looking at the deal in context of invidious forms of discrimination at CBS and its DEA policies, wants to look at it. What does CBS's DEA policies have to do with either, the 60 Minutes interview or anything else? By the way, I had to look up invidious. It means really, really bad. So that's the first thing. In the last couple of days, one of the biggest critics of Donald Trump on television is Stephen Colbert in his late night show on CBS. In the last few days, CBS has canceled its show. And it was right after he said that he was essentially ashamed of his network for this settlement. So what happens is that you silence your critics. Very important. The second thing I just want to mention is one that you may not know about. This is about James Ryan. He's president of the University of Virginia. And he just resigned. And the reason that he resigned is he said that he just didn't have it in him to fight the federal government pressure from conservatives in the Trump administration over diversity, equity, and inclusion. What the Trump administration has gone after different colleges and universities about is the fact that the pro-Palestinian protesters are considered to be anti-Semitic by the Trump administration. This has nothing to do with DEA policies. But this guy, what does he do? He quits. So what's he done? As far as I'm concerned, he's made Congress irrelevant. Can you name one initiative of Congress that was not initiated by Donald Trump that that has come up? It's just like our Congress and Senate react to Donald Trump, and because they have a majority for both, they, as far as I'm concerned, our Congress doesn't even matter anymore. We know about what's happened with the judiciary. We know what's happened to long-standing policies of inclusion and diversity. We know his feelings about climate change and the environment, and his attitude towards unfriendly universities. It's not a very happy scenario. One other item I want to mention. I have to say in my life, one of the things that has been a really big deal to me that my kids were sick of me talking about is they would say they want to do something or they want to buy something, and I would say, I think that's excellent, so how are you going to pay for it? I still feel that way. And as far as our federal government goes, I think that if it's an idea that we all agree is a good idea, let's pay for it. That isn't how it works. Our current national debt is $33 trillion. Every one of you owes $106,000. All your kids, your grandkids, they all owe $106,000. Probably not uncommon for an average American family to owe $1 million on the national debt. And this is the insidious part. If you go out to your mailbox, open it up, there's no letter from the federal government saying that you owe $106,000. We can do an installment plan if that's better for you. Nobody's asking you to pay this. So who cares? Well, why we should care is that the interest that we're paying to people all over the world on this debt is $1 trillion a year. Imagine what we could do with that $1 trillion of good stuff if we had it, but we don't. And the people that hold the national debt, they get paid. And as I said, the big beautiful bill will, over the next 10 years, will increase the number at the top will increase it by $3.4 trillion, and it's going to be more because the normal deficit spending is going to keep on going. Okay, what else has he done? Okay, how about world trade? It's total chaos. Are the tariffs on, off? What's going to happen to the things that we buy? We've got Tim Cook up here with the iPhone. That actually is a port of Seattle. Boeing airplane. We got the wheat coming from the Palouse in eastern Washington. This is all important to our economy. What the hell's happening? What else has he done? He's created confusion and uncertainty among our allies. This one up here, that's NATO headquarters. This is a Ukrainian army tank. This is the South China Sea, where Taiwan is continually threatened by China. Are we peacemakers or warriors? Are we isolationists or world leaders? Who knows? I hope I've successfully depressed the hell out of you, because now I'm going to tell you the good news. I don't think that Donald Trump is ever going to become a real dictator. The reason is, and this is the most important of all, we are the oldest, most established democracy in the world. We have never been ruled by a strong man. Other countries, name them, they've been ruled by strong men. We never have been. And so then, this is really important to me. Normal to us is having 3 branches of government that are always bickering with each other, free and fair elections, the Bill of Rights. These are normal to us, not having some strongman telling us how things are. Then, the second reason I don't think he's ever going to be a dictator, the 22nd Amendment. And Barry, you would know more about this than me, so if I'm wrong, please correct me. But anyway, the 22nd Amendment clearly states no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. His term, Trump's term ends in January 20th, 29. Amending the Constitution would take a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. Trump can't even get his big, beautiful bill to even come close to that. He has to have his vice president, What? Okay. Sorry. He has to have his vice president break the tie. He's not, However, we have to keep in mind that we need to have the opposition to Trump be strong. To amend the Constitution, it takes a 2/3 vote of both Congress and of both houses, and ratified by the legislatures of three-quarters of the states. He would, when even just look at red and blue states, he doesn't even come close. And he can't say that any future election is rigged because he's not going to be on the ballot. And if he does another attempted coup, it's not going to, if that catches us by surprise, shame on us. Okay. Historically, the incumbent president loses congressional and Senate seats in the midterm elections. I cannot stress this enough. This is not going to happen automatically. This is going to take a huge effort by us. We need to identify young, vibrant, smart, democratic candidates with a good potential to win, and we need to support them with everything we've got. Then the other thing is, unless the Republicans want Trump to continue to be their leader, there's little reason that they have to fear him, which they do now. His base will still exist, but they're a minority of the electorate, and our efforts should not be spent where they are the dominant political force. In other words, you've got, like that group from January 6th, write them off. We don't need them. We don't need to try and convince them. We'll never do it anyway. So who is going to be the new Republican leader after Donald Trump? Fortunately, I was able to find pictures for you. Not only did I find pictures of potential Republican presidential candidates, but also I found pictures of congressional Republican candidates. And so this is you can see over on the left, these are the potential Republicans wanting to be president after Donald Trump. And then this is the whole group of potential Republican congressional candidates. This is just, first, I should have said this earlier. This is all my opinion. You may have a completely different opinion. Great. Your opinion is easily as valid as mine, and I could be wrong, you could be right if we disagree. Anyway, I'm not scared of these bozos. You got Mike Johnson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you got Donald Trump Jr., J.D. Vance, got Ted Cruz and Mark Rubio. What a bunch of idiots. We need to call them out for being idiots. And this is the last slide. I wanted to just show a picture of the Pacific Ocean from the Washington coast. I want to create a sense of tranquility and peace. So this is my conclusion. Our traditions are older and more entrenched than anywhere else in the world. There's always been the haves and the have-nots, the ignorant and the enlightened, the bigoted and the tolerant. We will never eliminate the far right. Their dream is of a white, evangelical, Christian country with limited government intervention in people's individual lives or business. What we need to do is not try to eliminate them. We need to marginalize them, make their power as little as possible. We also need new, young, democratic leadership. You know, when I wrote this, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about eating dinner in our dining room, which we all do. Look at our servers. You know, they're late teens, early 20s, they're all of voting age. They are so nice, but you know what? We don't have a clue what their lives are like. We don't know what they do during the day when they're not, you know, out in our dining room. Where do they get their news? What do they talk about with their friends? We don't know. And you know what? That's okay. Our parents didn't get us either. But we need to have democratic politicians that do understand these people. And it's not Chuck Schumer. Am I making sense here?
Yes.
Okay, we need new, young, democratic, smart, new people coming up. Okay, then, the last thing is we are in a battle for our principles that we must fight and win. And that, you're thinking, that I'm done.
Thank you, Roger. Okay.
Peter's hand.
I'll start here and work my way over here. You're getting a lot of reaction. Hey, Chris, would you mind getting me another hand mic? And
Where is Judy?
So,
There.
I'm going to ask a question, and I want to know if I'm totally paranoid here. One of my fears is that Trump will find a way to declare a state of emergency and cancel the 2026 midterms.
Do you think he would actually get away with that?
I don't know.
My response is, I don't see it.
you could really screw it up, though, by making it confusing. Just a minute.
Well, you know, one of the things that they're trying to do, because the Republicans are so worried, is that, you know, the redistricting and, you know, limiting voting rights, they're scared.
I have several points to make. Number one, you haven't mentioned expansionist ideas. Trump has been talking about Canada as an extra state. He also would like to involve other. other countries. It's cozying up to other dictators.
Yes.
What did Hitler do with Mussolini? You say that most dictators don't have a follow-up person. Well, what about Putin? He's a follow-up to Stalin. So that regime has continued very much with a little bit of liberality in it at one stage. And I think the other thing we need to look at is what is Trump planning to do in the next 6 months or so that parallels what Hitler did. So I see that ICE and the Proud Boys and all those people and the vast billions of dollars that are being put into ICE in the new funding is going to create the brown shirts and Trump's private police, and they're going to start rounding up people. I'm a naturalized American. I may be denaturalized. It's quite possible. So I appreciate this excellent presentation. I think of being an American who's been here a long time, and your family has. I think you're overly optimistic. And I think people need to look out for what's going on. The other thing is that the previous dictators got rid of their opposition by killing them or making them jump out of windows and things like that. So in the States, we can't do that yet. What we do is use money to destroy people. So we have the people here with the money, the billionaires who are in bed with Trump, who will destroy other democratic leaders who have money or who run things. So I have a warning that we need to do more than just be good guys and hope for the best. We've got to do something active at a national level, national strike, something that's going to block the system, cause a ruckus. Thank you.
Well, I can, let me just make a couple of comments. First of all, one thing that Trump does that's a very effective strategy is that he will come up with something incredibly bizarre, like let's make Canada our 51st state. Let's buy Greenland. And or the ICE raids, deporting people. What he does is that he diverts our attention. The real crime that Trump has done is the $3 billion tax break to its rich millionaires, and the environmental damage as well. Those two things are really core to me. I think that I think we're vigilant. I think that we know what's going on, and the things that you're talking about that are possibilities. We don't have blinders on, and I am hoping that the different news media, our Democrats, like our congressional representative we just heard here, they know what's going on. If it continues to get worse, Trump is going to be called out. I really honestly believe that we can stop it. We have the power to do that.
Roger, it's me.
It's very.
Way over here.
Oh,
I certainly applaud, as others do, your very thoughtful and insightful presentation. However, I was fearful until your conclusions that I would lose my 10-year title as chief pessimist about what was coming, and
I didn't know I had a title.
the risk that Trump presented. He's taken out the two branches of government that the founders believed were necessary in competition. He's done that. He's succeeded in nullifying the judicial branch guardrail. He's created a legion of brown shirts, as somebody pointed out, or Gestapo, known as ICE, that are taking people off the streets, people not very different than us. It seems very much, you call it a would-be dictatorship, it seems very much like a dictatorship to me, except for the one thing that he hasn't done yet, and the First Lady pointed it out, he hasn't canceled elections. But I think he's about to try that. He's going to try to cancel the 2026 elections, and I wish I were as optimistic as you, but I can't be.
I understand.
So I guess my reaction to all of this, am I? Can you hear?
We can't hear you, Natalie.
Hello?
That's right.
So when I've been looking at Facebook, I've been seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of Americans on our streets being very angry about the ICE, attacking them even. And my question is, when there was Kristallnacht, were there Germans on the street attacking the Gestapo? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So you might be pessimistic, but when I see all of these people on the streets, I get optimistic.
I want to really quickly just bring up one other thing that I meant to talk about. In other countries around the world, let's take Tiananmen Square in China. So you have the people coming together in a demonstration, and they're put down by the government. China did not have MSNBC, the free press, a vital oppositional party. We are different, and we need to take advantage of that difference.
Hi. I'd like to just make a quick point. You keep mentioning your feeling that America is different and that they're the oldest democracy, but nevertheless, this is a very, very young country. And we all know the saying that history is no predictor of future events. You've got to realize that every European country, probably every Asian country, probably every country in the world has gone through these cycles of times where they were better governed, times where they were worse governed. You know, 200 years is really nothing, and we shouldn't be complacent that America is any different. It's not. It's just a country full of people like every other country.
You know, I respectfully disagree. First of all, we now are a country that's not one, you know, like Nazi Germany, you know, Germany was pretty much a white country, and we aren't. We are different. There's a reason that people all over the world still want to come here. I really honestly feel we are different, and that's what's going to get us through that.
Okay, Ron is next, then Patty, and since we've already run over our time, that's going to be it. Go ahead, Ron.
Much is stated by the media and our important people about the threat to democracy. And it is very real, as we have just seen. However, to a working class person who is afraid of losing his or her job, trying to pay for all the stuff they need to support and raise a family, democracy is sort of a philosophical concept that doesn't really register with them. It's not important, directly important in their lives.
Let
So
me
I
inter-
don't think that pushing the threat to democracy is a winning political platform for the midterm election.
Yeah, and I agree. And but see, the thing that's important is that person you're talking about, the working class person, they're wondering how they're going to pay the bills, how they're going to pay for college, blah, blah, blah. Those people have been abandoned by the Democratic Party. And that's the problem. We need to get new, young Democrat politicians that say, hey, stick with us. We want you to have the American dream. As stupid as that sounds, that's what they want.
Okay, I guess I have the final comment. Roger, I don't feel so assured about Trump not running for a third term. He has stacked the Supreme Court in his favor, and my understanding is that he is going to ask the Supreme Court to rule that the Constitution currently interprets the Constitution to mean that one person can't serve 2 consecutive terms. So that would leave it open for him to run again.
Yeah, but that's not what it says.
There's plenty of things that are clear to us.
The other thing I want to say about the Supreme Court, which we all are scared about, these are technically all, 6 of them are technically conservatives. What is a conservative Supreme Court justice supposed to do? They're supposed to be strict constructionists interpreting the Constitution. I'm not giving up on them, not yet.